welcome back to the Force with Friends podcast. This week we are going to be talking about the Tales of the Empire, the new trailer that we just got. I think everybody is excited about this. So we have Kevin, my friend and co-host, but also my cousin Bryson is going to be joining us today. Bryson is a Star Wars genius, so usually the few times a year we see each other, we spend the majority of time talking about Star Wars. So we are glad to introduce you to the podcast that we have discussed. Also, you can see I have a standing desk, so if you're watching this in order, it goes like the cell phone towers by everybody's height on the camera, which is kind of funny. But that's where we are. Thank you guys for hopping on. So before we get too far into this and like watching the trailer, what did y'all think about the trailer?
Bryson, you can kick it off if you want.
I was amazed, firstly, at just the like animation style. I mean, with the Bad Batch and now this, it is improved immensely from where we started, you know?
For sure.
But also just, I mean, these are two characters that I didn't expect to get background on. I thought Barriss' story ended a long time ago, and Morgan Elsbeth, she's so new, I didn't expect this, but man, I'm welcoming them with open arms.
Yeah,
I agree. It was a really cool shift of direction from Tales of the Jedi. You know, we were joking about it back when we did our like what's coming up this year. We were like, wouldn't it be crazy if it said Tales of the Jedi and it like struck through with a lightsaber? I think we were like Tales of the Sith, but I mean it's close, right? So it's really cool to see them really taking some chances and doing, because I mean Tales of the Jedi would have been great, right? It would have been another great second season.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that they're trying to do something different and tell some different stories. So I mean, yeah, if that's where we're coming from, I can only expect it to be really, really good. So
yeah, I was like, again, not two stories. I don't think if anyone out there is like, oh, I expected Morgan Elsbeth and Barriss, they're full of it, first of all. That's not what they expected. Either that or they are Dave Filoni. Unless you're talking to him, you didn't expect this. And so I'm not a huge Morgan Elsbeth fan historically. Like, I don't think her character has been overly compelling. Like in The Mandalorian, it was cool to see the action sequence, and then in Ahsoka, it's almost as if they just kind of used her, right? Like they're like, yep, she's going to be the one that Ahsoka kills at the end. Like, and that's just kind of how it happened. But then now I'm like really excited because it's like Clone Wars era, and it's going to get kind of a big backstory. I mean, we see Grievous, we'll get to that. And then the other story, Barriss' story, it's not one that I was like, oh, I need, like, Clone Wars apologist, I apologize for this. But like, I don't care that much, right? Like it's interesting, but on my list of stories, she would have been way down the list. But then like, okay, I go back and rewatch some of this stuff and I'm like, no, that is a very interesting story to tell. I think it's going to be very cool to see because it's a pretty complex story. So I'm excited for both. So let's hop into this trailer and see kind of what all the buzz is about.
Seek Imperial favor.
Years ago, my people were all but destroyed. My anger gives me strength. It is that strength I offer the Empire.
Offer accepted.
I'm here to present you with an opportunity, Barriss.
Just be glad you're not a Jedi anymore.
Your path is set, Morgan Elsbeth. I will fulfill my destiny.
Mercy only breeds defeat. But I will help you overcome this weakness. Attack!
You said the Empire would help to change things.
Everything comes at a cost. My world has been burning since I was a child. You cannot stop what has begun.
Now, you must face one final test. To join us. It is time you meet your new master. Long live the Empire.
So that's pretty awesome.
Wow.
They do so good with trailers. I mean, they could probably make a trailer for Luke Skywalker watching paint dry, and I would be pretty excited about it. But they did pretty good with this one, especially like what we said. It's not like two stories that everybody had on their bingo card, and it still turned out to be pretty exciting. So what we're going to do, breaking this trailer down. So we're going to really take a dive into both stories they're telling. So they're telling Morgan Elsbeth's story and they're telling Barriss Offee's story. And so let's go ahead and start with Morgan. I think we get her first in the trailer anyways. So this Morgan Elsbeth story, it kind of lends us to believe that it's going to tell us why she needs the Empire, why is she interested in the Empire. And so Kevin and I talked a little bit about this earlier today, but with it being 3 episodes each, we think it's probably going to be a similar format to the Tales of the Jedi, where you get kind of like an origin story. You get what's happening, like the action part, and then you get the aftermath. So that's kind of the formula they followed in Tales of the Jedi. So we think that's probably going to happen here as well. And I think in Morgan Elsbeth's story, we do see a bit of time jumping happening throughout her story. So what do y'all think we're going to see with her?
So I definitely think we're going to see more of like Grievous's siege on Dathomir.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it shows that in the trailer, but I think we're going to see like a whole new side of it. I mean, even going into, I mean, maybe a little bit more like brutal attacks, that he does. And I'm all for it. I'm very excited for it.
All for the violence.
Yeah. I agree. I think if even one of the whole episodes is just devoted to the Battle of Dathomir, because Grievous, to me, I think he deserves a little more attention. Like prequel Grievous is kind of, honestly, he's always been kind of goofy to me.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm like, oh, that guy's really menacing.
Yeah.
But to, the Witches of Dathomir, like he was this terror. And so it would be really cool to see him portrayed in a really just terrorizing, like violent, destructive way. I think it would go a long way to doing him justice. But again, just seeing backstory for Morgan, because she needs it, right? I feel like this is one of those things where we've talked about a lot. Like the more you can do this stuff, the more it enriches the things we've already seen and the things we already know. And so it makes you care more about her in Ahsoka in a lot of ways if you can really give her a compelling backstory. So definitely want to see a lot of the Dathomir battle. That would be great.
We kind of talked when we were talking about episode 3 that like we like animated Grievous better than episode 3 Grievous, because like you almost forget he's there in episode 3, like, but then in the Clone Wars he's pretty good. So I think we're gonna get that menacing Grievous here. But as far as like the timeline goes for this, I think we're probably gonna get an episode like Morgan with the whole Night Sisters and everything. I don't know if we'll get the destruction in that same episode, because these are going to be like 12 to 15 minute episodes. They're not that much. Like it's just a little half episode essentially. So probably like her little Night Sister upbringing. Then we probably get the Grievous destruction, right? The Siege of Dathomir. And then after that, I feel like we get her a time jump. We get her on that where she's the warlord of that planet, right? Where we find her in the Mandalorian, because we see that planet there. We see the little area where she fights Ahsoka. And so I think I'm hoping it leaves us at Ahsoka, because we already know how her story ends. We get that in Ahsoka. So I'm hoping it leads us up to the Mandalorian, like where she fights Ahsoka, and kind of bridges all of that gap and enhances the story we already have.
Right.
And honestly, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, honestly, I'd be fine if we don't even get that close to Ahsoka, because I feel like we have a pretty concrete idea of where she is there. I really want to see like before, like how she got involved with the Night Sisters, because unless someone made a huge mistake somewhere, which, I mean, Filoni doesn't normally, like, she's human, right? And the Night Sisters are pretty much primarily, like Dathmiri, Zabrak, or whatever. And so I do want to know, like, why there's a human amongst them. Like, where did this human Night Sister come from? And it would be really cool if there's, like, tension there, like if they don't like her because of that. And so I'd love to see the start of her story with the Night Sisters, because it's got to be unconventional. So I'm hoping we get something with that before we get to that Battle of Dathmir.
I'll tell you, and it's so hard. But go ahead. So I was just gonna say it's hard because they're time constricted. Like, we're looking at 45 minutes of time for this whole story.
That's pretty much what I was gonna say. I was like, this is a very short amount of time that they have to answer a lot of questions. The one question I really want answered is, I want to know where she got her Beskar spear from, because throughout the trailer they show it a lot, and I'm just like, I really want to know who gave it to her, or if the Night Sisters have been using. Yeah, I mean, I want to know if the Night Sisters have just been using Beskar, like them and the Mandalorians.
I feel like it maybe comes from Thrawn. Is my thoughts, because again, facelift Thrawn is in this trailer as well. If he like the on SpongeBob, like the Squidward that's super toned, that's not like the normal Squidward. It's like that's what they did to Thrawn here, because it's certainly not. Is it Lars Mikkelsen or Mads? Which brother is it that plays him?
It's Lars.
Lars Mikkelsen plays him. That's not the facial structure, and then it's not the Rebels like facial structure either. It's like he's had a few fillers in this. So we're gonna have some Thrawn story as well, like how she gets affiliated with him, because I mean, the Empire, she could have been affiliated with anyone, but it's Thrawn. So we're gonna get a little bit of that backstory as well. And as strategic as he is, I think we may get a little bit into why he's so interested with Dathomir as well, because he's got this fixation with it. That's where he goes at the end of Ahsoka. Yeah. So odds are this maybe shines some light on that as well.
Yeah. Thrawn, he's always... Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just I have to say, I am like the biggest fan of Thrawn. Like, I've read his trilogy twice. I'm about to start the Ascension trilogy. Nice. I love the character of Thrawn so much, so I'm very, very excited to see his connection to Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah, he is a great character. I was going to say, I mean, he's a guy who's always gathering resources for future plans, right? And so he doesn't take on someone like Morgan Elsbeth for no reason.
Right.
And so seeing his side of what that is going to be really interesting.
It's going to be so good. And I mean, we probably get like a couple minutes of Thrawn in this whole thing. Just like, how it all, we probably get a couple minutes of Grievous. Like, that's just how the nature of these quick things, these things go. But I think they're not going to accidentally tell a story. Like with the Tales of the Jedi, with Ahsoka, it gives us, we're setting up for the fact that Ahsoka, the series, comes out this year. And then with Count Dooku, I mean, as far as that goes, I think it probably even supplemented the Ahsoka story a little bit, because in Ahsoka, the whole idea was this unconventional lineage that she came from, which Count Dooku is a part of that. So yes, it was just kind of like hey, fans get a little more behind the scenes on Dooku, but it also supplemented what was coming out on screen at a later date. So I think this story is probably going to make what we already have better, and then it will probably explain a little bit of where we're going to. Just my opinion. Anything else on the Morgan Elsbeth story? I think a lot of our conversation will steer towards the Inquisitors, Vader, and Barriss.
I do think we're going to get to see, Ahsoka makes that comment about Morgan Elsbeth, about how she, really, I'm trying to remember what it was, something about really helping the Empire's growth through kind of tearing resources from different worlds and like that kind of, and we see that scene where she's talking to what looks like some sort of diplomatic person who's like, you said the Empire was going to be good for us, and so it looks like we're going to get some view also in how she's kind of maybe going around and manipulating these worlds into joining the Empire, and then they find out it's not so good for them.
Right.
So I think we'll get to see that stage of kind of what she really contributed to the Empire, right? Like, how is it that she became so ingrained with Thrawn's favor, but Yeah.
What could she possibly offer, right? Like,
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see that. And did y'all notice as well, the guy that was in it on that planet, he's the guy in the Mandalorian. You know, that like he's the mayor after Mando kind of liberates him in Ahsoka. It's that same guy that was the good guy with him from that town.
You know, I didn't think about that, but now that you mention it, you're right.
It's him.
Which so I was actually going to talk about that that one scene where they show all those soldiers and the diplomat and the mayor.
Yeah.
I might be completely wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure those soldiers are New Republic soldiers. Which
they're wearing the little garb.
Yeah. And they've got their ranks, which makes me think that maybe she took over that city like after the Death Star explosion. I mean, or after the New Republic was founded.
Yeah. Or either she just kind of like, she might have already been over it, and then she just was like, oh yeah, we're into the New Republic, and lies to him or something. But you are correct, I believe. I was watching, it was either Mortis or Sith Talk or something like that, one of those podcasts I watched, but they were like talking about how there's some time jumps with this. And so it's going to be interesting to see. So let's go ahead. We're about at the halfway point. So let's shift over to Barriss Offee's story. Am I saying that right before I make the Clone Wars people mad?
Yes, Barriss Offee.
It's a thing I do. I don't know. So just want to make sure I have this correct before I hurt anyone's feelings. So her story, it's a Jedi, so we're interested, right? It's a Force user. Controversial one at that. I mean, we all know her Clone Wars arc where she turns into like a terrorist essentially and goes off the deep end. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of all we get out of her, right? Like, it's not a full-blown story arc. It's more of Ahsoka's story, and she's kind of the antagonist in it. So her actions are done largely because she has lost faith in the Jedi, right? Their ideals in this war and everything. And so she takes it like Ahsoka has lost faith in the Jedi, and she just walks away. She's like, I'm done. But Barriss loses faith in the Jedi, and she's like, I'm going to attack them, right? Like, I'm going to do something bad. So we kind of see opposite pictures there, and we see opposite realities. We see Ahsoka kind of going her own way and laying low, and we see Barriss apparently joins the Inquisitors. But I'm interested in whether it's genuine or not. Like, is she genuinely joining them to hunt down Jedi? Is she like trying to get to Vader because the list is growing for everyone who knows who Anakin is? Like, it's just like every new show that comes out, they're going to make it to where someone knows who he is. So is she going to be in this list, or is she just really bad and that's what we're going to get? Like, it's a sad thing. She's a hunter for the Empire.
Must tell you, I really hope it's the second one. I hope she's just evil, personally.
That's what I hope too.
But they have set up a really good redemption arc if they wanted to do it, and I would be happy either way. But my hope is, I'm like, just be an Inquisitor.
Just be bad.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah, like, and I feel like it wouldn't make sense for her to be able to flip. I mean, she helps a woman feed tiny robot bombs to her husband. And blow him up in the temple. That's pretty terrible. Like, that's awful. Like, you gotta hate a group of people quite a bit to do something like that. So I mean, and it looks like we find her being released from prison, right? And so these are her rescuers, right? I can't see anything where she's gonna be like, maybe I was wrong about the Jedi. You know, I think she's still gonna harbor that bitterness. I think but one of the things that's interesting is I do think one of the things I loved about Tales of the Jedi is we saw two people leave the Jedi Order in very different ways. Whereas here, I feel like we're seeing two people join the Empire in very different ways, right? You have Morgan, who's really seeking power. And I feel like Barriss is more on this side of where they manipulate and use people and just kind of bring them into this thing that they need them for. They're super disposable. And so I like seeing kind of these two very different paths to join the Empire, kind of in the same way we had with Tales of the Jedi. And so I think her story has potential to be really interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting things that could come out of it. So I'm really interested in kind of where her story goes.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, I mean, she hates the Jedi, right? Like, that's why she turns bad. So, I mean, if you hate the Jedi, then Inquisitor's a pretty good career for you after that. So Maybe she is just going to be bad. It's kind of what I'm hoping. But Kevin, kind of before we hopped on, mentioned that how is Anakin or how is Vader going to feel about the fact that, Barriss is an Inquisitor and she also framed Ahsoka? Like, is Vader going to handle that well? And I do like the idea that maybe he doesn't. And so he avenges Ahsoka because he might blame Barriss for some of his issues that come, right? Like through Ahsoka leaving and things like that. Like, I think there's some further ramifications you could get there. So maybe it turns into a Barriss versus Vader thing and Vader just kind of takes care of her. I've been just itching to see Vader take care of business on screen, and this could be it.
How crazy would it be if we see Barriss become this Inquisitor and do all these awful things and finally reaches the rank and she just gets killed by Vader at the end? Like that's
most
how
Vader
her story
thing.
Closes out. I mean, it is, right? Like, that's such a Vader thing to do. And it would be such. They're telling tragic stories, right?
Yeah. Like,
that would be a really tragic way for her story to go if she does all these awful things, become an Inquisitor, and Vader's like, "Oh, you, okay."
And he just says something so cold, like while doing it too. Like, we need to see that, whether it's in this situation or another animated thing. Like, we need some cold Vader because we're getting real warmed up to Anakin again, but we need to kind of keep things in check too with Vader.
I actually kind of hope that's how this ends.
Yeah. Like, kind of how he does in Fallen Order. Like, how he's so cold when he's finishing the job in Fallen Order and Survivor. Like, that's really what I would like to see here too. And it's in the timeline. So maybe that is what will happen. Now, one thing that was funny, I don't know if y'all saw the meme or not. I may have sent it to you, Kevin, but where it's like it shows Marok and that ghosting the Inquisitor from Tales of the Jedi, and it's like the Got Messed Up by Ahsoka Club. And it's Marok and that guy that she turns into gas or whatever.
That's true. Yeah,
I thought that was funny.
She offed half that group and right there. So
Ahsoka has taken care of quite a few of these guys. So
that's
the Rebel Squadron, I mean, Kanan, Ahsoka, they take care of essentially all of those people minus Vader. So I'm excited to see the Grand Inquisitor again because I feel like
he
in
looked
Kenobi.
Amazing.
That's not the Grand Inquisitor we wanted in Kenobi. Like, this benevolent Grand Inquisitor that's like, hey, you don't need to be mean to these people. Like, no, give us bad Grand Inquisitor from Rebels. And so that's what I'm hoping we get here.
Yeah, and it sounds like we got...
I should say, like, a lot of the introductions to characters in this trailer gave me chills more than, like, any of the other trailers in the past. Like, seeing the Grand Inquisitor, General Grievous, this updated version of Thrawn. All these characters, I was just getting chills. Vader, man, that last scene, I think all three of us thought the same thing. We're like, man, I kind of hope he kills Barriss at the end of it.
Like, Vader from, like, the chest down is what we see, right? Like, do we even get full Vader? We just kind of get him walking in.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I hope we get, like, I imagine we'll get a full episode with her at, what is it? One of the
Fortress Inquisitorius or whatever.
Fortress Inquisitorius. That's such a fancy name, right? I mean, I imagine we'll get like a whole episode there with him. Hopefully, with him. It sounds like they got. Is it John Isaacs? Is that his name? The guy that plays Malfoy in Harry Potter.
That's the guy who does the Grand Inquisitor, right?
Yeah, it sounded like his voice again, which he's does so great in that role. So
I saw him at MegaCon.
I do hope we get a lot of him. Oh, did you really?
Yeah, like, that's just awesome. A few feet away, because like at MegaCon, this is like a wayside note, but like there's the way they had the autograph like section set up. It's like it's a huge like auditorium, gigantic, like multiple football fields, and there's like a whole row, and so they've got like the Princess Bride was like next to Star Wars, was next to whatever. So there's like a bunch of big name groups, but then like kind of off to the side, you've got Doctor Who, Harry Potter, Randy Quaid was there, like Cousin Eddie. And so they're all kind of in these random spots. And so there's no one around this group. Like the Stranger Things was over on the other side next to Star Wars. And so you can just be standing like 3 foot away from Lucius Malfoy and Neville Longbottom was over there. I forget the woman's name from Doctor Who. My wife is into that. But it's the woman that was in ER as well. She was married to Voldemort. River Song is who she is in Doctor Who. So
I love listening.
You're
to
just
describe
like
people.
feet away from these people, and they're like, "Oh, you're not as tall as I would have expected," or "You're like, older than I thought you would be." But either way, side note, I saw him.
It's Jason Isaacs, by the way, not John Isaacs. I wanted to correct it because I knew he was going to see this. I didn't want him to be offended.
If the Potterheads get mad at you, we're in trouble because you're a Potterhead. So
I enjoy Harry Potter.
Yeah. I go to church, so I like Harry Potter too. That's a joke. That's a joke. I like Harry Potter.
That was great. I feel like we're just angering a lot of people right now.
Let's just get them all. Anything else I need to know?
Yeah.
So I think the Barriss Offee story has the greatest potential to not end well, as far as if we're looking at these two. I think if we're going, you know how they go every other episode, and like the grand finale will like Ahsoka's was the final one in the first season, like that episode where she's kind of after the events of episode 3, and we finished Tales of the Jedi with her taking care of that Inquisitor. And so I think the order of these episodes, I think we actually start off with Barriss's story, so we go like 1, 3, and 6, or however that works out. No, 1, 3, 5. So it'd be 2, 4, and 6 would be Barriss's story. And so I think we finish with that scene with whatever happens with Vader. I feel like that's going to be the ending because they like to send us off on that note.
Yeah.
But, going back to the trailer, we also see her fighting as an Inquisitor too, right?
Yes.
Like I was just thinking about that. So it may be that she gets initiated and not killed by Vader, because we do see her fighting later in what looks like her inquisitorial garb.
Well, she's going to get 3 episodes, so she could have a how did you get there? Like, how did you get to the Inquisitors? What did you do while you're an Inquisitor? And then how does this story end? I think they
but I was just thinking maybe Vader doesn't kill her if that's the case, right? Like if she gets initiated already. I don't know.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He doesn't care at all.
We'll see.
But
I know some of the rumors have been that, like, that might be Luminara in there.
Maybe Reva replaces her. Maybe Vader can maybe Vader can actually finish the job on this one. I mean he's tried on Reva twice and can't get it done. Maybe he doesn't miss here.
Maybe don't go for a stab this time. Maybe.
Force choke or nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but I can definitely see. I mean, I think they'll probably make her an Inquisitor, and she'll like work towards it, like be an Inquisitor for a while, and then they'll introduce Vader in. Like, I don't see why like Vader has to be first, and then she can be an Inquisitor. True. But
Vader, it's true, because they will hold Vader off. Because we've said this many times. The rule of thumb is once you introduce Vader, we don't care about anything else. So you've got to wait to put him in until we've seen everything we need to care about. So that's a good point. So looking at these 2 stories, let's say this for each story. What do you want to see from the Morgan Elsbeth story, and what do you want to see from the Barriss story? I can start if y'all need time to think. So for the Morgan story, I want to see a lot of really cool in this form of animation. Like, I don't want the Grievous scene where she's fighting him just to be like that, and then, they just kind of move on with something else. I want it to be like the whole episode, like a lot of Grievous action in that story. Again, I'm not overly invested in the Morgan Elsbeth story still. It'll be cool to see. So I really want to see like a lot of really cool action because the animation looks so good for this. So I do want to see that. For the Barriss story, I think we've already said it, but I want to kind of know how she gets to where she is, but then I also want to see, I want to see it resolve with maybe Vader getting some payback for what she did to Ahsoka. That's what I would selfishly like to see.
For me, for the Morgan Elsbeth story, I really just want to see more of Grievous just taking over Dathomir, just destroying Dathomir, because like even there's some comics that I've read where they reference back to it. Like I think in the Sons of Dathomir they talk about it a lot. I think, and it's supposed to be this big deal, but in the Clone Wars it's only like maybe 1 episode, and it's not shown that much. So I really just want to see more of that. And then for the Barriss story, I just want to see Vader do something. I just want to see Vader really like, and I'm excited to see the Barriss story because it can go many different places. But at the end, I really wanted to see Vader, like you said, avenge Ahsoka, or because that's a moral gray area, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Because like
That's a good point.
Because he's going back to his past to kill. I mean, to kill Barriss over something that happened with Ahsoka, which means he's going back to his feelings as Anakin.
Anakin feelings, yeah.
So it it just adds it's a weird, complex situation with that, you know.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And also, I will say, like, if all of our predictions revolve around Vader, Inquisitor, Grievous, Thrawn, well, they shouldn't have put all them in the trailer if they didn't want all of our expectations to be centered around all those big things that they sprinkled in around these stories. So, I mean, if you go watch everyone's reaction, they're like, oh, Thrawn, oh, Vader, oh, Grievous. They're not like, oh, Morgan Elsbeth. Like, they're excited about the other stuff we saw. So they set us up for this.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin.
I guess to be the different one. I mentioned earlier, I want to find out how she ends up with the Night Sisters, like what her background is. Like, I hope that that's a part of her story, but just because I feel like that could be a really interesting piece of storytelling to add to her character. I mean, Barriss, I'm kind of I want to see Vader and I want to see him do something awesome. So I feel like I gotta, I don't know, if I had to pick something else, I do hope
you don't have to.
I know, but there's a part of me that really does want some closure with Luminara, though.
Yes,
right? We know they end up with her. They capture her, right? Like, because I think she gets.
We see that. Is that what we see in Rebels? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, and there's a interview with Filoni where he's talking about when they come in and see that hologram that's they're seeing her last moments for her execution, essentially.
Yeah,
that's where she died. So they get her somehow.
Maybe that's how it ends.
Why not
like
do it
she's
in
the one who gets Luminara.
Yeah.
That would carry some weight.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah,
Golly,
sure.
I didn't even think about that.
Especially if she does it and gets killed by Vader.
Ooh, both.
And we got both. That's awesome.
I
vote that one.
And then just got off by Vader because of a personal grudge. That's it. Just
gosh, that's the way to do it. It rounds everything out so well.
Yeah, I don't see her story ending well, though. I don't see how it can for her.
No.
Well, especially considering, like, okay, we've got Kenobi, we see the Inquisitors. We've got Rebels, we see the Inquisitors. She's not in either of those.
She's not really popping up.
Now, I do have to say, according to that, do you remember the seventh sister from Rebels?
Yeah, she's
the one in the video game.
No, that's
she's in
the
Rebels,
second.
right?
She's in Rebels. She's like the season
she got the
2.
Tentacles.
No, she's the same species as Barriss.
Yeah. Miralyn.
Yeah, Miralyn.
I had to look it up.
Something.
Well, y'all are so weird.
I mean, I don't have an argument for that. So.
No,
we have a Star Wars podcast. What do we say?
Yeah. Whose podcast is this? Who runs this?
I'm out of this.
I'll have to look it up. I probably am familiar, but
I think it's Mirror.
Yeah,
that's true. There is one that's the same race.
Yeah,
that we
I mean, there's a chance, but I'm not betting on it.
It's true. Also, we do have which also in Fallen Order we don't see her. Like, there's a lot of Inquisitors there too, and we don't see her yet either. So, will definitely be interesting to see. So, I think. We're what is today? We're recording this on the 9th. We're 25 days away or something from this, which is pretty exciting. We're going to have the end of the Bad Batch that week. We're going to have the Phantom Menace comes back to theater that Saturday. We've got Tales of the Empire that Saturday. May the 4th is going to be
fun.
A good Star Wars weekend. They just released the Cinemark put out the popcorn tin and collectible soda thing. So me and Kevin are going to be at the movie theater splitting 130 ounces of popcorn watching the Phantom Menace, because that's how many ounces the popcorn thing is. We're going to watch Tales of the Empire. It's going to rock. This is a good time to be a Star Wars fan. A month later, we've got the Acolyte, and then we've still got later on in the fall, whatever the other show is, Skeleton Crew. That's still coming this year too. Yeah. So I mean, this is great. The golden age to be in Star Wars. So I think when
they just dropped that story trailer for Outlaws too.
Yeah, Outlaws. That's coming out.
Which I finally got around to watching it. it doesn't give a whole lot of story, but it still looks interesting. I think it could be really fun.
Yeah, we got Han Solo in it. So, I mean, when you think about like, okay, has Disney done everything perfectly with Star Wars? Absolutely not. But when you think about Disney buying Star Wars and doing like, you know, tons of content, just throwing it at us left and right, this is it. And so I'm pretty excited about the prospect of like 5 or 6 different Star Wars stories that we're going to get over the next week or year. So that's pretty exciting. So any last thoughts before we go?
No,
we're all content.
Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, comments, let us know if Bryson is invited back to another podcast. You will be the ones that determine whether he gets to be a mainstay on the show.
I vote yes, because apparently I need somebody as weird as I am, according to you. So
yeah, so you know, we'll see. We may extend the invite again, but Bryson, for real though, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. Next time you're here, you're gonna have to bring some of your Lego collection to show off, though. That is gonna be the prerequisite. Otherwise, we don't know what we're gonna talk about next week, but I promise you, we will figure out. So thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next time.